one first. Portfolio simulation. So this one has been covered in the recording stage. And then in the recording is also visualization, right? So this shouldn't be a problem. Ability visualization. I think tak sure sempat. Kalau tak sempat hari ni, I will teach you hari Khamis. Okay? So this is short selling law. Okay, in this short selling scenario, we have this condition. This scenario, now I said the analysis of law for short selling the portfolio. In this scenario, stock weight in the portfolio can range from negative 50%. Okay, the short is equal to half the portfolio value up to 150%. Okay, the sum of all weights must equal to 100%, meaning that you are allowed to short some stock by borrowing using proceeds to buy others. But let the performance in the given limits will be the key step of part 2 under these new conditions. Okay, so we calculate these three things, same thing. Okay, visualization, same. Okay, now with regards to short selling, the only difference is when you do the there are two parts that will be different. Okay, I assume that you have watched the videos. I assume that you have done your homework. Okay, it's not possible for me to check one by one. If you are lost, I'm sorry, you have to watch the recordings again. Okay, now for short selling. Okay, it is pretty much the same step as this one. Okay, if you look here, we see for the normal portfolio, it says that we assume the weights is greater than 0, where all positive weights exist. And then in the random portfolio, we also generate random numbers, but only positive numbers. Okay, only positive numbers are allowed. Okay, so when we want to do short selling portfolio, you will see two different things. One, the efficient frontier itself will be different because it consists now it consists of short selling stocks. Okay, and the 5,000 portfolio will be different as well. Okay. Now we go to this one. Okay, it says here stock selection consideration. So this is part 3. Finally, imagine that you want to form a smaller portfolio using only 3 of the 10 stocks. Answer the following questions each separately. Okay, each separately. Okay, so I give you 3 situations here. In situation 1, if you only consider returns, which 3 companies would you pick? There is 3 companies with the highest average weekly return. And question B, if you only consider risk, okay, volatility, which 3 would you pick? Okay, meaning that the 3 with the lowest weekly standard deviation. Remember that return, you want the return to be as high as possible. That's what you prefer. But for risk, you want the risk to be as low as possible. Okay, you don't want high risk. Okay, you want the lowest risk, and therefore we want the lowest standard deviation. The 3 lowest standard deviation out of 10. And then lastly, if you consider both return and risk, which 3 stocks appear the most attractive for a balanced choice and why? Okay, in your recordings, ada tak ajar pasal rank? Rank tak ada kan? Ada. Sorry, ada. Saya tak ingat. Ada. Apa ada? Ada. Ada kan? Okay, so I don't have to teach it. So to answer this, you need to do ranking. The first one, you rank. You need to show this in your Excel. Okay? You show rank based on return. You need to show your weekly. So this is my portfolio. Yes, this is my portfolio. So we have this. Okay. So I have this. Okay. So this is my portfolio. So we have three questions here. Question A, return. Question B, risk. Question 3, return, and risk. So this is the thing that you need to do. So for return, you need to do rank. Okay? Rank. So how to do is rank based on annualized return. Okay? Annualized return. So you rank, comma, and then the reference. Okay? The number refers to the number that you want to rank. Okay, then we have comma, the reference. Reference means that the number is compared against what? Okay? So this is the comparison against. Okay? Remember that? Okay, except for Emas. Okay? Ignore Emas. Okay? Ignore Emas because Emas is the index, so we will ignore Emas, only 10. And then we're going to fix this. Okay, fix the reference. Okay, fix the reference, then we need to put dollar signs. Okay? Shortcut for dollar signs is you just have to press F4 on your keyboard. Okay? And then order, you just leave there because you know that those with the lowest return will get the but the highest return will get number 1. Okay, so just put 0 and then enter. So let's see, center. Okay, now we know that capital A, the ranking is number 5, and let's drag it to the right. Okay, so if I drag to the right, if I double click this one, if you look at top left, what is the annualized return? Okay, for my company, top left is ranked number 10. So betul tak? Betul kan? So we did that, we least preferred top left because the ranking is, because the return is terrible. The second lowest is what? Is Pharma Niaga. The return is negative 26%. Okay? Negative 26%. So from negative 38, and then it becomes negative 26, and then number 8 becomes negative 23. So I know that the ranking that I have here is correct. Okay? So with regards to question in the assignments, if you only consider returns, which 3 companies would you pick? So in my case, I would choose these 3 companies. Okay, problem solved. I would choose the first, second, and third. Meaning that I would invest. I would put my money in Jasa Biasa, Jaya Biasa. Okay, Synergy as well as Tenaga. Okay. Now the second one, risk. Okay, risk is just the same thing. I need to do the rank. Okay, if you have your Excel, you can try it on your own. Okay. So for risk, we're going to look at the annualized standard deviation. Same thing. Tengok dekat this one, annualized standard deviation, and then comma, and then the reference is everything in the portfolio except the kucing. Okay. Highlight that and then press F4. Okay, we put all the signs, so we fix those cells, comma. And then for standard deviation, it is slightly different. Okay, it's slightly different. Why? Because you prefer companies with least, okay, least risk. So when least risk, you mean that you prefer those with the smallest, those with the smallest standard deviation. So you need to put ascending, and then close the bracket. That's the line at first. So if I drag it to the right, and you see, okay, if you look here, the risk, in terms of risk, number 1 is Tenaga. Okay? So the Tenaga risk is 15% standard deviation. What about number 2? Number 2 is 27.99. You pay or you, Okay, around 28%. Okay, you can see that as the ranking goes higher, from 1, 2, 3, 4, okay, the risk is also higher compared to the return. The return, the number one is the highest. Okay, so this one is well. Okay, so for risk, dua, tiga. So risk, empat. Okay, so return. So for these, we refer to this one. Okay. And then lastly, return over risk. So for return over risk, okay, how can you measure that? It's easy. First, we need to create a return over risk ratio. Okay. Right? Dia ada beberapa cara. Okay? I will show you return risk one. Both are correct. Both are correct. So this is C1, okay, the first one, the simplest one, okay? The simplest one is this. You just tambah dua ni. You tambah ranking for return, ranking for risk. You sum these two up, and then you drag to the right. So we know that it is just hasil tambah. Good? So 9 plus 10 is 19, blah 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 blah. So based on the one that we add up, okay, we need to choose those with the lowest, 3 lowest numbers. So what is the lowest one? Definitely a B. So let's give it a little purple, then what? And then this one 5, and then this one 6. Okay? Clear, right? Ada tak lebih tinggi? Ada? Okay. So, senang kan? Betul tak? Understood? So, it is pretty simple. You just have to sum these two up and then you will get this. Now, a more complex way. Okay, a more complex way. Okay, saya cut. I'm going to cut this. Saya letak bawah sikit. So because I need one more space here. Right? So here is return over risk. I'm going to create one parameter called return over risk. So this is, in essence, it is just annualized return divided by annualized standard deviation. So okay, so for capital A, it is 6.65%. Salah, 6.65. Weighted over risk betul dia. Oh, dia dapat 6.65%. Salah. Salah. Number. So, now if you look here, if you look at it, can you see the number? What is the number? against that, ingat kan mana-mana ratio yang any ratios and whatever you see. The idea is when you divide by something, when you got the number that you see there is per 1 unit. Okay? So in other words, for return over risk, it is per 1 unit of risk. So for capital A, it generates 0.0665 return for every 1 unit of risk. Okay? So you want higher number or lower number? Of course you want a higher number, right? Because later for every 1 unit of risk, you prefer to get the higher return. So we need to practice to the right. Okay, and see, this is the return over risk. Let's see. Okay, so again we need to use the same method, rank. Okay, so this is the number. Reference would be return over risk and then fix it. Then this one we prefer a higher number. And higher number then we want descending. Enter. So lepas tu letak tengah. Okay, drag to the right. Okay, make it into a practice where you always double click the last one. Double click this one just to make sure that when you grab the formula, everything is correct. Okay, so say you grab formula good. So based on this, what is my choice? Now, if you look into this one, this is interesting. Okay, now based on what you see here, the number 1, number 2, number 3 is this. This and this, right? So this, then this one, and this one. Good? So it gives you 2 different choices. Okay? If you look at risk and return 1, where you just sum those 2 ranks, okay, you got a different answer compared to when you do it return over risk. Good? Which one is correct? Which one is correct? Betul. Jawapan dia sebab saya ajar, dua betul. Okay? Dua betul. However, you know, this is something that you can apply. Okay, nanti bila kerja, ingat dalam beberapa. Okay? If you have 2 parameters, if you have 2 criteria only, then you can create this ratio. Okay? It's easy to understand. It is more accurate. Okay, it is more accurate and it is easy to understand. If you have 2 parameters only, use this one. You need that, use this. Why? Because it gives you a fair comparison. If you look here, let's look at number 2. Number 2, the return is 40%, but the return is 60%, but the risk is 40%. It's number 2. And number 3, the return is 11%, slightly lower, but then the risk is 28%. Right? Lower, slightly lower return, bukan 16, dia 11, kurang 5 je. Tapi the risk dia lebih banyak. So that's why we listen to this one. Okay? But what about compared to this one? This one and this one is different, right? If you look into this one based on the sum of rank is lowest, number 3 lowest, the return is 4%, but the risk is 28%. 4% dapat, risiko 28. Okay? This one. Okay. Compared to number 3, you guys see it? Number 3. So this is, remember, according to this is number 3, and this is number 3. Yang ini dapat 11, risiko 28. So, logically, if you have to choose the third one, which one would you choose? If you go into detail, you will choose this because immediately you will notice that dia dapat return banyak ni, and then the risiko is banyak ni. Okay? So of course you want that number 3 rather than yang ni. Yang ni tak betul. 4 dapat 28 dari situ. 28 dari situ. Ya, it's not worth it. However, kalau contoh, if you have 5 things to consider, okay, then can you do this? Can you do a score like this? It's really hard. It's really hard. Okay, you need to have so many criteria, and then you have to assign weight. Contoh, saya nak cari calon, saya nak cari kerja baru dalam UiTM. Let's say I want to find another lecturer. What is the criteria? Criteria number 1, as a PhD, it's more than a PhD. Check. The criteria number 2, which university the PhD came from? Yes. Number 3, what are the criteria? The publication, and then the impact. Whether how many times does the guy has appeared on TV? Okay. So we have several criteria. So those are examples. Okay. So we have several criteria we have to consider before. Okay. But in that case, it's really hard for you to do this unless you have an PhD. Weightage is 0.3. PhD from Duke University, weightage is 0.2. So you must have a certain weightage to that. Okay, and then you can get. However, if you don't have those kind of things, what you're ranking, you just sum the rank. When we sum the rank, we just assume that every criteria will give an equal weight. PhD sama penting dengan PhD dari mana, sama penting dengan berapa kali keluar TV, everything is the same. Okay? So everything shares the same weight. So the easiest one when you have so many parameters is this. Okay? So this is especially practical. Let's say you become a manager or supervisor or executive or something. Let's say you work at 99 Super. Okay? And you want to look at not maintenance Super Trust and maintenance Super HQ. Okay? You have thousands of products and then you want to rank among the products. Which one is generating profit? Which one is causing you more cost? Which one take up a lot of space? Which one is too slow to sell? Okay? So you have those parameters so you can do a kind of score. When you see the score, you do a proper score, you see that this product is very good, it is in high demand, you should read it more. This product is less effective, sangat lambat nak jual, okay, so you should sell less. So that is the practical aspect to it. Nanti banyak benda boleh belajar. Okay, so that is rank. Okay, now weight. Okay, so let's go into save. Ada aja variance covariance. Kan? Betul dalam buku ada dengan variance covariance dan correlation. So there is another way to calculate variance covariance. Tapi variance covariance but for the purpose of your class, okay, I don't mind. In fact, in the final exam, juga if asked, okay, kalau sekiranya ditanya, please focus on using the formula. Okay, straight away do the formula. Same thing with correlation. standard over this. Okay, the formula of this one. Okay, this one. This divided this down. Okay. Buat dari tempat lain itu keluar dari sini. Okay. Now, so the last step is you need to find first copy kepada this one and then letak kat sini. Okay, so I already have it here. Okay. So okay, if you have watched the video, then you know, okay? The only information that you need to calculate to create the efficient frontier ada dua. Satu, annualized return, and another one is annualized extended deviation. Word, if you forgot, nak pakai apa? What information do you need? Look at the formula. Formula will be given. Formula will be given. The financial will also give the formula. Okay. So if you look here, various metrics. So we need these three things lah. Sebenarnya satu je ke ranking sebab dia individual. So this is the must. So we actually kita perlukan satu je, perlukan anniversary kita je, tapi I suka letak semua sekali di sini. Okay. So as usual, we need to have this data reflecting the list of company we have. Tengok betul, ingat betul the arrangement that you have here is sama, and this arrangement. Everything sampai reflects from the very first arrangement. Ingat that we are playing with the formula. We were playing with formula. So formula is very precise. Okay. So tak boleh macam tiba-tiba dekat hujung ni suddenly you want to change. Kalau biasa letak dekat sini, and then this one letak dekat sini. So it give you a different information. Okay. So first we start with equal weight. Equal weight, so just assign 10% each. Kita letak 10 because we have 10 companies, so 10% each. So total, if you look down here, the total will be 100%. Take over then, total 100%. So if you look at total weight here, total weight is this sum. And then we need to calculate the return. The return is the sum product. Okay? The sum product ni, sum product apa? Jadi sum product is What is sum? Hasil tambah. Product, hasil darab. Betul? So it is actually, sum product is a hasil darab dan tambah. Okay? Of two things. So it is sum product of two things. So the things that we refer to is satu, the return. So this is the sum product. Fix it, kita tetapkan dia because this return akan berubah. The second one, the sum product would be the weight. This would be the weight. In other words, this calculation, so I will not fix this one because I will drag the formula to bawah. So what does it mean? It means that it is a product. Okay, contoh 0.02, maksudnya 2% darab dengan 10%. Tambah negatif 2% darab dengan 10%. Tambah 4% darab dengan 10%. So return times with weight, and then you sum it up. So maksudnya enter dapat return. Okay, so there is some program. The weight. Okay, and then variance. So variance, remember that we are using weekly data. Okay, weekly data. So weekly data dekat sini di in my recordings I use daily data. Okay, in my recordings I use daily data. Okay, because I allow you to choose companies basically just whatever for the competition. So some of the companies might have some masalah sebenarnya in the past. And therefore, this time I don't ask you to do to take the daily return. Saya kata pakai weekly return. So weekly it has less problem. Nombor satu, tak ada isu public holiday. Sepanjang saya hidup dekat 40 tahun, no such thing as satu minggu public holiday. Tak ada. Oh, but there's yeah. So it was not a public holiday, tapi negara berkabung. Do you know where? Okay, not sure. You guys know that. Back in, if I'm not mistaken, 2002. Tadi juga. Dulu ke? Betul lah. Tapi rasa macam dulu. Ataupun sebelum tu lagi, 90s. At that time, Selangor Sultan was the Agong. Selangor Sultan was the Agong. Okay? During his term of becoming the Agong, he passed away. Okay? Dia meninggal, dia jadi Agong. Okay? Kalau satu negeri, contoh, di mana the Sultan meninggal, then the whole negeri akan bergabung, I think maybe 1 month or 2 weeks, something. But bila Agong meninggal, during his time as an Agong, so satu negara ni dari Perlis sampai ke Sabah, so all negeri bergabung. I think for Selangor bergabung basically. And then for 2 weeks. And at that time, I still remember, masa tu I was still a kid, okay? Masa juga, okay? Tengok TV, jadi TV tak ada rancangan hiburan. So TV semua cerita, orang baca Yasin, okay? So ada berita, there's berita, but no hiburan all cancel. Okay? So this is national level. So I think that's the first time bila our king. Okay, no, okay, next. So for variance, okay, class, the trickiest part yang paling susah sekali dalam creating a portfolio is this. Ini sahaja. Itu yang paling susah. Getting the portfolio variance. The reason why you cannot, not say you cannot. The reason why it is very hard to calculate the portfolio variance when you have more than 3, when you have more than 3 assets in your portfolio, is getting the portfolio variance correct. Contoh macam dalam return senang. Return is just the return of the company times the weight. Ada 100 company pun no issue. Okay, it's easy. Tapi when it comes to variance, if you look into the calculation, this is the formula. Okay, so if we have dua asset, this is the sum product. Okay, this is the product weight dalam standard deviation. Weight dalam standard deviation. So this is sum. These two are sum products of weight and standard deviation. Remember, we are talking about variance. Kita tak cakap accepted. But then there is weight 1, weight 2, covariance. So to calculate covariance, there is a formula. There is a mathematical formula to calculate covariance. Itu untuk dua set. Lepas tu kalau kita ada 3 set, this 5. And then covariance 1, 2, covariance 1, 3, covariance 2, 3. Lepas tu kalau kita ada N, kalau tiba-tiba kita ada lagi, katakan ada 10 portfolio, the formula would be very long. Would be very long. Okay, it would be very long. Alright? The combination would be sangat. And that's why in the age of technology we can simplify that by using the covariance matrix. Okay? So now, just in case you don't understand what I wrote here, okay, sometimes, if you interact with students from Dr. Koi class, ataupun dulu-dulu Dr. Science Koi class, they have a different way to present, to arrange their portfolio. The way I present my portfolio is the one that you see here. Okay, the one that you see here. Meaning that, look at the return and then look at the weight. So the way I arrange mine is like that. Okay, melintang. However, in some classes, the way that they arrange things are like this. Then they will give weight. Okay, they will do that. So they will regard. Okay, which one is better? This one is easier to see. However, when you have that, it's pretty hard for you to do the 5,000 portfolio. This 5,000 portfolio, you have to go from left to right. 5,000 columns. Ingat dalam Excel, it's easy for you to go from top to bottom, but susah bila nak bawa from kiri ke kanan because you cannot use the double click function. Double click dia akan turun ke bawah. It doesn't go to the right. Imagine that you have to range for 5,000 portfolio, it's susah. Okay? So that's why the way I present this adalah macam ni. Hence, okay, there's no right or wrong. You will max. Those are these numbers. That's why in my formula, tengok cara you susun the weight. In a 3-stock portfolio, if you arrange portfolio weight using 1 times 3 matrix, then your formula will be this one. However, if you arrange your portfolio weight using 3 times 1 matrix, then your formula will be this one. So matrix 1 kali 3 macam mana? Matrix 1 kali 3, melintang atau melegak? Melintang. Okay. Satu row kali 3 column. So melintang. So for my style, this is one. But if you are using the other one, you need to use this. Okay. So I need to use here because sometimes you might belajar di YouTube ke mana ke, dia bagi formula this one. But mine is that one. So this one. Okay, the easiest way untuk dapatkan formula ni adalah just copy this from this part. Copy it. Okay. Because the formula is there, just copy it. Kalau 950. Okay, we have calculated the return. Now we want to calculate the variance. Okay. First, I put an equal sign and then a case. So this is the formula. Yeah, saya copy yang mana satu tadi? Which one did I copy? Saya copy yang ni copy this one. Copy. Okay. Now, we kata kat sini weight array. So weight array, so you highlight this one and then you tukar dengan the weight. And then, because weight, you don't want to fix it. Tidak nak tetapkan dia. You don't want to fix it. So we just leave it without the dollar sign. And then, kita nak covariance matrix. Okay, so covariance matrix, dekat mana? Covariance matrix adalah far over. Okay? So you need to highlight all. Jangan masukkan emas. Okay? If you termasukkan emas, emas is index. If you termasukkan emas, your portfolio become 11, bukan 10. So the variance covariance matrix become 11 times 11, bukan 10 times 10. You have 10 portfolios, so you need 10 over 10. Covariance matrix. Now, berapa banyak covariance matrix you have in your portfolio? We have only one covariance matrix. Jadi yang ni tidak akan berubah regardless of how many numbers of portfolios you have. So this one will always be the same. So tekan F4. You need to put dollar sign dekat sini ya. You need to put the dollar sign here. And then next is comma transpose. Transpose weight array. So weight array, go back to the weight. Alright? Highlight it again. Same thing here. So weight, covariance matrix, weight. Now, in the formula we have 252. However, this is if you use daily data. Because you are using weekly data, you have to change it to 52. Betul? Remember that we transform, we make it annualize, we multiply by 52. Betul? So same thing with this one. And then enter. Once you got portfolio variance, it's pretty straightforward. You just have to square root whatever value that you already have. Okay, so maksudnya square root the variance, SQRT variance, close the bracket, and you got that figure. Okay, and then return to risk. Return to risk is simple. You just take the return divided by standard deviation. Macam saya cakap sebelum. Okay, done. So this part of you. Okay, so that is portfolio equal weight. Okay, clear? Okay, now portfolio 1. So this one is slightly different. Okay, this one is slightly different than what I showed in the recordings. Okay, there is a purpose for this one. Okay, class, tengok dekat return only. Look at return only. If you look at return, which company has the highest return? Which company has the highest return based on my data? Company mana yang dapat highest return? Which one has the highest return? Senang, kita tengok the ranking, betul? We already did the ranking before. Tengok balik ranking. Satu kali nombor satu. Nombor satu kita dapat JD Astra. Okay? So, in portfolio 1, what I want you to do adalah invest 100% in the highest portfolio. So, in the highest return. 100% in highest. So I will invest 100% in JTSR. So JTSR will put 1. So that is practice. Because 100% is invested in JTSR, the rest will be 0. Then the total weight will be, remember the total weight is just the sum of all weight. The sum of all weights and increase of capacity equals sum of all weight of a status bracket. And then what about the return? Return is what we have done before this. Double click this check. Make sure that when you drag the formula, okay, only this turun. Only this yang turun. The weight turun tapi the return maintain. Okay? And we got 16.3664. Now 16.3664. If you look here, 16.37, it should be equal to JTSR. No, JTSR return is 16.37, the return is also 16.37. Logic tak? Logic. Why? Because you invest 100% in JTSR only. Setuju? So you invest 100% JTSR, so you will get the return of JTSR. And if I bring down the variance will be the variance of JTSR, which is 16%. If I bring down the standard deviation will be same standard deviation as JTSR, 40%. And if you calculate the return to risk, you akan dapat benda yang sama juga, which is return of risk. You got 0.4085. If you look at the calculation we have made, 0.4085. Sama tak? Sama tak? Exactly the same. Okay. So that is portfolio 100% in highest return. Okay. So what does it mean? Okay. It means that whatever you do after this, what do you want to do? There is no way your portfolio can get your combination of portfolio when you combine. Because after this you will be assigned different weights. There is no way for you to get a return of higher than 16%. You takkan dapat return lebih tinggi daripada 16.8%, which is JTSR punya 16.37%, which is JTSR punya return, because that is the highest possible return. However, is it the most efficient return? The answer is no, because JTSR it still has a high standard deviation. It has pretty high standard deviation. Remember that efficient frontier is not making the highest return. Efficient frontier is about making the most efficient return over risk. Maksudnya you nak paling banyak return untuk satu unit of risk. That is efficient frontier. That's why the name is efficient. So you will see. So we will see what combination are the most efficient one. Okay, and then the rest of this, sama je, you just have to sini. I will put this one dekat juga ke sini. Okay, so we have one portfolio. Remember that this portfolio number 3, this portfolio, the jasa biasa, this is the highest return possible. But the minimum variance portfolio adalah portfolio that where you can get the lowest return. Macam mana nak buat? First, start with equal weight. Just copy and paste equal weight. And then total weight, just grab this one because you already have the formula sum. And then all of these semua tarik ke bawah. Okay. So for the second portfolio, what you want to do is that you want to minimize standard deviation ataupun minimum variance portfolio. Yes, you want to minimize the standard deviation. For that, you need to use solver. Solver dekat solver data. Solver. So solver set objective. Soalan dia is what is the objective? You want to do what? You want to minimize. Betul? What do you want to minimize? You want to minimize the standard deviation. Dekat mana? Portfolio number 2. So dekat sini standard deviation. Okay. So minimize standard deviation. Okay. By changing variable cells what? So nak tukar apa? Nak tukar the weight. Okay. So weight dekat mana? The second one dekat sini. So this is the weight. You need to make sure that you select the correct ones. This is the minimum variance portfolio to weight. Okay. Subject to the constraint. So the subject to the constraint is that at all costs, okay, macam mana pun, the sum total weight must equal to 1. Itu syaratnya. Macam mana pun, the sum must equal to 1. Then, okay. Ada syarat lain lagi? Ada syarat lain lagi? Apa? Remember that we're going to start with positive portfolio only. Okay? So, in this positive portfolio only, another syarat adalah you go to the weight, sekarang you highlight the weight. Weight, syaratnya it must be greater than or equal to 0. Dua syarat. Okay, it must be greater than or equal to 0. So there's two syarat. Satu, this one is sum must be equal to 1, which is 100%. Number 2, the weight must be positive. Okay. So bila dah buat benda ni, and then solve. So dia keluar macam ni, maksudnya betul. Tak ada masalah. Kalau ada masalah, dia akan keluar satu tanda seru. Then it's okay. Jadi, what does it mean? It means that for this portfolio, the lowest possible risk adalah 12.32%. Itulah risk yang paling rendah sekali for this portfolio. Kalau kita copy, if I copy this value, I bring it to here. So remember this is summary statistic, betul? Now we are talking about standard deviation. Saya letak dekat sini. Okay. Now this is my portfolio, kan? This is the portfolio, the minimum variance of the portfolio. Maksudnya tak boleh lagi rendah sini. Dia paling rendah sini. Tengok dekat variance kat sini. This is the variance, standard deviation. Look at the standard deviation of each company. Capital A 36, Bufu 43, Yuk 27.99, Denari 33, JTSA 40, TNG 28, Famaniaga 64, SK Press 35, Tenaga 15, Top Plus 48. If you look carefully, mana-mana individual stocks will not have a lower return, a lower risk compared to this one. Remember why we have portfolio in the first place? We want to minimize the risk, right? We want to diversify. This is what it means. Maksudnya, kalau you invest satu company, you akan dapat portfolio as a once you diversify, you see that, hey, we can achieve that. Betul? Now, tengok emas. Emas is what? 9.36%. Betul? Lagi rendah daripada kita punya portfolio, betul? Why? Kafai, kenapa? You let's diversify. Okay. How many stocks are there in emas index? There are almost 1,000 stocks. Ada berapa? Dekat-dekat 1,000 stocks dalam emas index. That's why it is more diversified and it has a lower risk. Faham? Sebab tu, that's why bila kalau tak tahu nak buat apa, atau nak invest kat mana, invest dekat index. Okay? Dengan cara beli ETF, Exchange Traded Fund. Kalau you guys tak tahu, so if you want a lower risk, okay, jangan lower risk. But if you want the highest return, that's not the answer. If you want the lowest risk, okay, now masa muda, you are still young, you have a different mindset. You want the most return. That's why the younger people they will say that they are more risky, they are higher risk. Okay, that is just the way human beings are. Tapi when you go older, you have what? 2 million, 3 million in your bank account. Will you invest? You can't invest in risky stocks because you know that saya dah umur, let's say dah umur 60. Okay, if suddenly you lost your retirement, it will be too risky. So what you do? What you will do is that you will choose investment yang berisiko rendah. Jadi antaranya adalah you choose to invest dekat dalam index. So letak dekat index, betul, it will go up, it will go down. However, that is the least risky. The least risky. Kita cakap dari segi risiko. Now, disclaimer. What you see here, this is only for stocks. Macam mana nak rendahkan lagi, nak dapat rendah daripada emas, jawapan dia invest dekat dalam treasury bills. Treasury bills, what is the risk? 0%. Risk 0% risk. Okay, faham? So that is the risk one. Sebab tu bila orang kaya-kaya sana, what they do? They invest in bond is good enough. What they do, they invest in treasury bills. So tu bila contoh Malaysia as a country, bila US ubah dia punya kadar bunga, interest rate, the US change their interest rate, their T-bill rate. So we as a nation, we invest part of our country wealth, kita letak sebahagian dia kat dalam kita beli US bonds, US treasury bonds, to diversify, to lower our portfolio risk. Bila kita ada zero risk punya investment, the risk of our overall portfolio akan jadi lebih rendah. Okay, faham? However, ingat, the return will also be lower. Right? Oh, before I forgot, kalau tengok dekat sini, if you look at the return of emas index, bila the return of emas index dapat 2.2%, bagus ke tak bagus? Kalau tengok return of emas index adalah 2%. Kalau if you look at T-bill rate, berapa? Malaysian government rate berapa? Lupa, cuba tengok ni. Nanti with your portfolio, because you have to Malaysia government student and Malaysia government assistance. So the government security scheme, look here, ambil dari baru, ambil our portfolio berapa tahun? It was based on 3 years ke? Kita ambil short term setahun. Kalau tengok, because we are comparing annual, what we started here, this is annualized return. Huh? If you invest in ERMAS index, your risk is 9%, but your return is 2.2%. Tapi kalau you tengok kat Malaysian Treasury bills, 12 bulan lah. Your return is 2.88%. What is your risk? Berapa risiko dia? 0. So you invest 2.88%, tapi your risiko adalah 0. So mana yang lagi bagus? Invest dekat ERMAS index, which is very diversified, dapat return pun sangat tak berapa bagus, tapi risiko dia adalah 9% compared to invest in T-bills. Which one is better? T-bills, betul? Okay, do you know why? Remember that when I asked you to gather the data, apa pilih mana? 2022 kan? 2022 nanti 2025, betul? Okay, so this period, masa 2022 especially, banyak company yang ke laut. Okay, sebab COVID-19 punya effect. COVID-19 effect, a lot of sectors are affected. Because a lot of sectors were affected, it reflects the ERMAS index punya return juga. Okay, so that's the idea behind. Okay, COVID-19 effect. Betul. Lepas tu dengan Trump punya effect. So all those actually give negative influence on our ERMAS index. And that's why if we look at anywhere dalam dunia, bila the market has some problems, people will leave the stock market and then move to another market. You will invest in T-bills, you will invest in gold, you will invest in gold. Ada sekarang sembilan akan itu ni. So okay, so I have told you guys how dalam video okay. So now I'm going to do one more minimum variance portfolio, but this minimum variance portfolio would be based on short selling. Okay, would be based on short selling. Now, tengok apa jadi kalau kita ada short selling. One more. Sini. However, this sepatutnya dekat bawah sikit. Short selling should be a separate set. So saya letak kat sini. Short. So, minimum variance portfolio short selling sama juga macam tadi, you just have to copy everything. Start with portfolio of equal weight, copy everything, paste dekat sini, okay. Lepas tu, go to solver. Okay, solver. Now, clear all. Okay, remember the goal is to minimize what? Minimize standard deviation. So remember that this is the portfolio that we want to do. Minimize standard deviation, enter. Minimize standard deviation. By changing variable cell, we need to change the weight. So this is the weight for short selling. Minimum variance portfolio for short selling, and enter. And then subject to the constraint, okay, the basics, okay. First start with the total weight. satu yang kedua adalah tadi ada dua kriteria ke? One is sum is equal to 1. Number 2 is what? The weight is greater than 0 ke? Okay, for the second one, you need to highlight the weight. However, if you look, kalau tengok dekat soalan assignment, for the short selling, short selling allowance, dia kata ranging from 150%. No, 50% up to 150%. So, dekat dalam sini, you kata greater than or equal to, the constraint is negative 0.5, which is dia lebih besar daripada negative 0.5. And then also, another constraint is that you need to select this again. It is less than or equal to 1.5. Okay. Jadi maksud dia, you want to minimize the standard deviation. And then you want how to minimize it? You minimize it by changing the weight. However, the sum of the weight must be equal to 1. The weight must not be less than, meaning that it must be greater than or equal to negative 0.5. However, the weight cannot be more than 1.5. Itu maksudnya, itu all the constraints. So, lepas tu solve. Okay. So, this is the minimum variance portfolio. Tengok, ada tak negatif? Tak ada. Somehow ada negatif. In my combination dia tak ada negatif, so maksud dia to minimize the risk, dia patut. Tapi look at the asal sama ke? Ialah sama. Okay. Okay. If you look at my answer, jangan. Option formula. Betul tak? Okay, that's obvious. Okay, if you look at this one, in my answer, kita boleh kata 100% sama dia sebenarnya. The difference that you see here is because of alternative calculation. Okay, tapi if you look here, in my selection of stocks, tak ada satu pun di bawah 0. Maksudnya no negative portfolio. In other words, Excel dah kira based on Solver, the best portfolio is still the same as atas. Maksudnya, you don't need short selling for my portfolio. Okay, dalam kes saya lah. Now, this is only based on minimum variance portfolio. Minimum variance portfolio adalah kalau kita dah lukis nanti dia paling bawah sekali. Okay, paling bawah. So I think in the next class I will teach you